Welcome everybody to this week's edition of the Not Your Average Investor Show. I am your host, Pablo Gonzalez. With me as always is my co-host, Gregg Cohen. Say hello, Greg.
Hello, everybody. Welcome.
And today we have a very, very special guest. This is the first time that we're doing this, but it's something that Greg and I had really talked about from the beginning, right? We talked about if we could start this group or we could start this show, we would eventually have people that are so involved in the show that we would have no other option but to bring them on and highlight them. And because of that, today we have a great contributor to our community, a client of JWB, an incredibly nice guy, Lee Bishop. Lee, you want to say hello real quick?
Hello, everybody. Great to see you.
All right. If you didn't know what Lee Bishop looked like and all you were doing was reading his questions and hearing me read his questions, now you know. It's that big, good-looking hunk of man right there. So, as you know, I have to do a little bit of housekeeping here, which is that if you're going to interact with us, please feel free to use the chat. If you want to talk to us and the attendees, you got to hit the drop-down menu where it goes from all panelists to all panelists and attendees. And Katie puts in the chat, I'm so excited to see what Lee looks like. And if you want to ask questions for the show, right? Today is more of an interview of Lee, but we do address questions as well. So if you want to ask questions, go to the Q&A part. There's a part here on the bottom of your screen that says Q&A that you can contribute to. And you put your questions in there. We'll get them asked. And if not, we'll get them asked on our Thursday shows where we do all Q&As. And as always, if you're listening to Lee, you're thinking, man, this guy really loves JWB. I think that I could get down with that too. And you want to find out how to be a customer and be as happy as Lee is every day of being a customer, go to chatwithjwb.com. You'll just set up an appointment, talk to our guys. They can set up a plan for you to add rental income properties into your portfolio. It's seamless, it's easy, and it'll be super valuable. So without further ado, I say we get started. What do you guys think?
Do it. Pablo,
All right.
you have been extra excited to see Lee today putting on a coat, man. You're looking good. Your hair's all good, man. You're really excited to see Lee, huh?
You talking about me, man? Yeah, dude. This is we got to give him the all-star treatment right here. I think Lee got excited. Lee, I think you got the JWB polo shirt. You want to tell us the story behind that shirt first?
Oh my God, I don't know if I should. I'd get Greg in trouble, I think. So I went down there. I'm an IT guy, and every decision is based on whether or not you can get a shirt from the vendor. So I told Greg early on, man, I'd love to get a shirt from you. I saw him in Vegas at the convention out there, and he said, "Oh, do you mind doing, saying a couple of words or being in the, interview process to let us know what your experience is and let people talk to you?" And I said, "Yeah, that's great. I'd be good with that. It'll just cost you a shirt, And he's like, yeah, sure." And it started from there.
I respect that, man. A little bit of swag goes a long way. I like getting my free swag too. So Lee, you were telling us, you're from Maryland. You've been in IT. You kind of want to give us your background, a little bit of what your professional life is like. I know that now you're a full-time real estate investor. So can you give us like a little glimpse into what that journey's been like?
Yeah. Okay. So, most of my adult life I've been in IT, and IT, if you're not learning, you're pushed aside. It's always a changing environment, always a learning environment, and so that leads well into what we were doing with my wife Jane and I decided. She's been trying to get me to do this real estate investing for the last 10 years, and I said, nah, I'm not swinging a hammer. Anybody told me I'd be doing a real estate investment and didn't have to swing a hammer, I'd be throwing them a liar. But, we went to one of those free seminars that they have, that comes into the area all the time, put on by Sam Merrill. And she talked me into going to that finally. I went to that and I said, yeah, this sounds pretty good. We'll do, go see what the next level is. So you sign up for a 3-day event and you pay money to go to a 3-day event. Everything's about give me money. And we learned a lot, actually, from the 3-day event. And by the end of that, we were hooked. Jane said, we're doing it. And I said, no, we're doing it. So, happy wife, happy life. So we got into, and that was September. So September, we signed up for joining this group. And it was all about learning, all about doing, anything that had to do with real estate investing and how to be an entrepreneur and how to invest and everything. It's all there in the curriculum, and you're learning all this stuff. And one of the things they had was a passive income club. And in the passive income club, I talked to them, and they gave me the list of participants, I guess, in the group that you could invest with. And so I said, let's see what that's about. And of course, when you learn something in my house, you sit outside on the deck and you pitch nuts to the squirrels, and you drink a bottle of wine, and I tell Jane what I learned, and that's how she feels like she's involved in this, and so far works out pretty well, pretty cool. And so I said, you wouldn't believe it. They got this thing where you can passive income, just get money out of your retirement and invest in houses, and it's a turnkey solution. You don't have to do anything. And prior to that, we always thought, she's watching all these HGTV and all that stuff where they talk about you have to fix and flips and buy, rehab, rent, refinance, BRRRR. And so we didn't know about this, buy a turnkey property, and we thought, man, that's an aha moment for us when we figured that out, or we got involved in that. And so we contacted, I talked to Mike Stetson, and we worked out what Jane and I were going to be doing as far as getting some properties and what we had in mind and how much we wanted to invest. And it ended up, the on-board process was pretty easy. You sign a couple of documents, you send JWB money, and as this is going on, people that are new clients, I don't know if anybody knows this or not, but maybe everybody does. Everybody posts emails to you, they say, welcome Lee Bishop to the new group. And I think I got an email from everybody. Gregg Cohen. I don't know why. I don't know. I thought maybe he was just ignoring me or something. But it was pretty funny. Anyway, no comment from Gregg? What? Anyway, so the whole process was easy, and I paid cash from first property. And
So Pablo, you losing a little bit of Lee over there?
Our finance was going to be
I'm losing him a little bit
because we needed to do non-recourse, but I didn't want
we do.
to be going to the other four houses. So we talked with.
Let's put Lee on mute for just a second till his IT genius catches up with all this. I mean, isn't it fitting that you bring on somebody who in his prior life is an IT whiz kid, and then the IT issues come about. So, and I still think the IT issues are happening there. So let's. I will piggyback off of Lee's story because I was a big part of this. At least getting to know Lee as he was coming on board and starting to acquire with us. And Lee started, as he mentioned, in September, really in a real estate education forum, trying to learn how to build a real estate business. Really had no clue about turnkey rental properties at that point in time. Then through that group, which is called Fortune Builders, and we have a wonderful relationship with Fortune Builders and lots of mutual clients. Fortune Builders introduced Lee to JWB, and Mike Stetson is on JWB's team. And we started to specifically focus on his rental property portfolio while the rest of the active real estate business is going on and learning all of those things that Lee's talking about. And what was it? Is it pine nuts that you eat and you down a bottle of wine every time you learn something on the active side, Lee? I think that's what it is. So every time he's doing that on the active side, that's not really what JWB's function is. We get to work with a client specifically to help them on that passive income side. And that's really where that mutual relationship started. And, from there, it's, we can certainly talk. I know hopefully Lee's technology will work. We can start talking a little bit more about the journey at that point, but it was, that's how we began.
Yeah, just checking in. Lee, can you give us a wave and a hello there? Seems to still be problematic. Lee, I'm going to put you on mute. If you can just start waving, we'll see when your feed works smoothly. In the meantime, Greg, he was telling a story that he was telling me earlier. It's a shame that it didn't come through, but he said that normally, or I don't know if normally, right? But he said he got an email from like everybody at JWB, but he didn't get one from you.
Are we okay yet? Am I back in? I think I was muted for a minute.
So Lee was calling me out, huh? He was saying he got an email from everybody at JWB, but he didn't get one from me, huh? That's because I was saving him to give him a big bear hug. I flew out to Las Vegas, and I was speaking at the Fortune Builders Conference, and I gave him, and his mom was there too. I got to meet his mom, and I gave them both the biggest bear hug. So what would you like, rather an email or a bear hug? Probably an email in today's COVID time, actually.
That makes sense. I think he's back. I think I see his camera working well. Lee, Lee, are you there with us? Oh man.
The IT guy.
This is live television, folks. This is what happens. So he was saying something along the lines of he bought the first property with cash, and that's how he moved forward. Greg, do you kind of remember the onboarding of Lee and how you guys set him up?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is really.
I'm hoping I'm back.
I don't know, Lee. I don't even think the mute button works on you, by the way. I think we've tried to mute you a couple times, but you're not having any of it. We're hearing bits and pieces of it. And if you know Lee, that's a joke because the mute button definitely does not work on Lee. Oh, I love Lee. He's a good guy. So when a new client comes on board, we really want to understand how to map this portfolio out the right way. Right. So what Lee did was take some money that just wasn't performing in the stock market, and he came over and said, okay, I want to reallocate that. I want to put that into a more consistent asset class like rental properties. And then he's like, well, I got this pile of money. Now, how many should I buy? And so a lot of that comes down to the goals that he has, where the income that he needs at certain points in time. And from there, we sort of go to. And so for Lee, he ended up buying 5 properties. One of those he bought with cash, right? There we go. We got a high five from Lee. So I don't know if the audio is working, but we got that. So there we go. So one of those is cash, and the other ones have non-recourse loans on them. And we can talk through about why we do it a certain way, but ultimately, non-recourse loans allow you to get financing in your retirement accounts. And this allows you to increase the number of assets that you have. And we do it in a way that it's positively cash flowing and in a way that you can basically maximize the income streams when these properties are paid off. And so it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. For Lee, it happened to be 1 cash, 4 non-recourse was the right approach. And, and that's a real value to work with people that have built, literally, we've managed over $350 million at rental property portfolios to know how to do it the right way. I mean, there are some pitfalls when you invest with your retirement accounts and rental properties. I know that was a really big value for Lee. We absolutely think it's really, really critical to make sure you map it out the right way. And then, to Lee's credit, Lee and Jane's credit, they are action takers. I tell you what, they, of course, it wasn't just purchasing the properties. They've really I think they've understood and kind of taken in the whole JWB experience, because they took us up on the offer for us to fly them down into Jacksonville. And we do this for all of our new clients. So Lee was there, right? Went out. I got the opportunity to go and speak in Vegas at the Fortune Builders Conference. Lee was there, right there. And, and then Lee, that's where Lee and my relationship really kicked off, because I got to spend some time with him there. And then, Lee is front and center. We're on my real estate walk and talks, he's there. So, Lee, not just the action of, adding the rental properties, it's this full community that we have. Ashley Hatton on our team is his portfolio manager. I know he and Ashley have a great working relationship, and they get to talk. Typically every month at least we're talking about where his portfolio is going, how his leases performing, do we have any maintenance issues? So it's not just about the action of buying the properties, it's about understanding the resources that are around you and taking advantage of them. And if there's one thing that Lee and Jane have done, it's been jumping in and really kind of taking the full source of the resources to their advantage.
Yeah, and that's really why we wanted to bring him on, because it was very clear that he is, in software terms, he's a super user, right, of JWB. Marilyn Cotterman has a question for us. She asked, "Do you know if were Lee's properties new built homes?"
I do. They are all new construction homes.
Okay, and was there a strategy behind that, or is that just the way that it fit in there?
I wouldn't say there's a real strategy based on new construction or renovations. It's a common question. Why do people buy new construction homes versus renovations? At the end of the day, if you look at the evaluations, and if you guys are interested in the evaluations, you can actually go to our website and download 3 property evaluations to see how the numbers work. But what you're going to see is whether they're new construction homes or the renovated homes, the returns at the end of the day are going to be the same. They're going to be estimated somewhere between 7 to 9%. What happens is on a new construction home, because they are brand new, what we're able to demonstrate are lower maintenance cost and lower vacancy cost. On the renovation side, there's slightly more maintenance costs and slightly more vacancy cost. But on the renovation side, your rent to price ratio is actually a little bit better. So the prices on the home slightly lower and the rent slightly higher. And so ultimately, the way that shakes out is the net effect of your returns are about the same. And so when we're deciding on whether to put new construction or renovations in there, we really don't have a preference for either. A lot of that comes down to what inventory is available, and then how much capital do we need to put those properties in there. So for example, over 75% of our inventory is new construction. So most of the time there's going to be some new construction in your portfolio. And then if there's a specific price point that we need to focus on, well, then we're going to specifically target the renovation to go in there. But, new construction versus everybody else out there, in my opinion, who does renovations, there's a big difference because you don't always know the quality of the renovation. Within JWB, our average renovation cost is over $40,000. So there is a full scale renovation done every single time. So we don't really have a preference between new construction or renovations when it's specifically with us. It might be budget related.
Okay, and I think we got him back on. Lee, can we give a sound check?
Yeah. How we sound?
I think a little bit better, my friend. I'm glad to hear you back.
Good to have you back, buddy.
Oh man, that was frustrating.
Hey man, just got to keep it cool, right? You gotta. Yeah.
Hey, thanks for covering for me, Greg.
I know your story. I know your story so well. It's easy, man.
Oh man.
So
yeah.
Lee,
Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say. So, do you remember when you were first getting started? Did you buy all your properties at once? Was there what was going through your head as you started buying into all this stuff?
Okay, so the first property we bought was with cash, and the second purchase that we did was for 4 of them, and we did the virtual tours, and we said, yeah, they're the ones we want. We got 4 of them with the non-recourse loan, and we had a stipulation where we couldn't pay the normal 50% in a non-recourse loan because it would have taken us over our entire, would have taken all of our reserves. So to make that happen, we asked JWB to help us find somebody that would be able to work with the 40% on a non-recourse loan. And they were able to come up with a lender that could do that, which was awesome. And so our reserves were perfect after that. We had plenty to work with in case. And so, I think I had $500,000, and we ended up investing $408,000, and we ended up with $765,000 worth of assets. So, my financial guy was saying, yeah, you guys, the reason why we got into that really was because the financial guy was saying, you guys are at 98th percentile of where you're going to be in your retirement. And Jane said, well, I get 2 weeks off. I'm going to have 365 days off. I don't want to be at 95 percentile of the rest of the people. So when we were looking at, a passive income flow, something that we could live with, or live on, she had her assets tied up in something that would pay a residual every month in her retirement portfolio. And I was looking at, how can I turn this investment over to my son and my nephew when things are all done? So as a long-term portfolio, this was key. I mean, this was, and so when we were talking about it, I said, yeah, I'm going to be aggressive. I'm going to get 20 houses. We're going to start with 5. We'll just knock 5 of them right off the bat. And then when we get this active income piece going, the active income side going, we'll use money to invest into more rental properties. And I think we were talking about having 20 total. And, I'm thinking, man, $20,000 a month, who couldn't live on that? If you can't live on that, you got a problem. Or, of course, people are saying now, you can't live on $5,000 a month the government wants to give you. I'm thinking, oh, man.
Hey, Lee, I'd love to hear your thoughts on non-recourse financing. Obviously, it's something that you believe in. Many folks are not familiar with it. And then, talking about non-recourse financing, your interest rates are higher than you would get for normal conventional financing, right? But for the right client, it still makes a tremendous amount of sense. Can you talk to me about your decision-making process to incur non-recourse financing and why it made sense for you both?
Yeah, great question, Greg. So we went with the non-recourse loan because we were using our retirement portfolio. And when you're using a retirement portfolio, you don't want somebody to, God forbid, get hurt and sue you. And, now you've lost your entire asset, that's a retirement asset. And I know that's a problem anyway, and it sounds like I'm being selfish, but.
Oh, no. Did we lose him again?
I had literally just put in the chat, so happy to have his video working, and thanks for sticking around to everybody. Right when I pressed enter, it went down.
Oh, this is kind of comical being.
Am I again? Damn it.
Lee, you're back.
Wow.
Pablo jinxed you, man.
I know Pablo was laughing at me.
Oh, Murphy's Law, man. You can't get away from it.
All right. Well, let's hear your thoughts before it goes out again. All right.
Oh, God. You didn't hear any of that?
Talking about how non-recourse financing, whether that's in your retirement account or not, it is another layer of protection because there's no recourse against the borrower. And in a retirement account, it's required to have non-recourse financing because just normal conventional banks don't lend to retirement accounts. So one additional layer of security was a part of the decision-making process for you, Lee. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, that was the whole thing. Because it's a retirement account, you have to use non-recourse loan because you don't want to be able to, have somebody come back and get that. So it's really is the responsible way of handling your money, protecting your assets. And for each individual house, like if something were to happen, God forbid, to somebody who's living in a house that has a non-recourse loan, or you default, you can't make the payments on it for some reason, they can only come back and just get that one house. So you're not losing your total assets. And so if you were in a conventional, mortgage, the rate's low over 3%. I think our rate was at 7.8% or 7.6%. We worked out. It's a 20-year loan. I said we only had to put down 40%. So we got $62,000. We borrowed $93,000. I thought I was making out like a bandit. My return on investment is great, but I'm being responsible actually with using a non-recourse loan. So it worked out well for us.
I know so many folks. The number one concern when you're investing in rental properties is positive cash flow, right? And so many folks who listen to us talk about non-recourse financing, the first question is, with a loan that has a 7.5% interest rate and a 20-year amortization, which is lower than what a normal 30-year amortization is, can you still have positive cash flow? And the answer is yes. And that's one of the reasons that we're a big proponent of non-recourse financing in the right situation for a client. It's because, your cash flows are going to be lower than what you would get if you were buying outside of the retirement account. But you also think about what the purpose of that retirement account investing is. if you're investing in your retirement account, you're not going to use that positive cash flow today, right? You're not going to use it until you start making withdrawals at age 59 and a half, typically. And so while your loan actually gets paid off quicker in a non-recourse loan environment in your retirement account, your cash flows are a lot lower. It's cash flow positive, but it's not a lot, right? And it works really well if your strategy is to build up the number of assets in your retirement account, get those things paid off so that when you get to 59 and a half, you might have 6 assets that are fully paid off rather than 4 assets that are fully paid off. And you were able to basically maximize those cash flow streams at a time in the future. It's that deferred gratification is a big part of why non-recourse financing works, even though some people have sticker shock on the interest rate. And the interest rate is just that high because it's a completely different ballgame than conventional financing. It has to be that way because big banks don't lend financing on retirement account purchases. So it's a little bit of theory about why it makes sense to do that.
And Greg, the way we were working it was the reason why we paid cash for the first one was so that we had money to put down on the second property, right? So you're right. The positive cash flow for all of the properties ends up being about $200 for the ones that we have the non-recourse loan for. But if you take those $200 for all of those, right, the rest of the money's paying the mortgage. The other $200 after expenses and everything, the other $200 that we have left is all going toward that one property that I want to pay down. And then once I pay that down, I think the time frame is 5 years using the 3X, whatever the model is, right? You pay it down in 5 years. So I'm not, even though it's a 20-year mortgage, it's still non-recourse. I'm still able to take advantage of paying it down early with no penalty. And then once the second one's paid for, the third one gets paid for in 3 years, right? So in a total of 8 years time frame, I have, most of the houses paid for, and that's if I only keep the 5, which is not the plan, So and not taking into account rent going up, So all those things, my expense is always going to be the same, my 10%, right? And so I like the business model. I like where it's going. I'm not depending on taking the money now, which is why I've gotten into that, right? I'm still youngish, not oldish. I'm youngish. And so I can afford to make a couple of years, right? I think the business model for my portfolio was, the guy said, you're in IT, you can work until you're 70, right? I'm always going, I'm quitting next year.
I love
so
how
we got to find a happy medium.
Yeah, he was saying that was like a good thing, right? I guess that's how most people feel, right? We're all on a path to build up the passive income so that we can work if we want to. It's not just that you can find a job until you're 70. It's
right.
Want to do that job. What are my options?
Nobody wants to work until they're 70, for crying out loud. But that's what, he was looking at me straight in the face and saying, you're in IT, you can work until you're 70. Yeah. Why would you want to? And that's what the Passive Income Club, and that's what JWB does for me. Between the companies that of all the companies that we looked at, we did our due diligence. We looked around, and really when, we got to meet the people at JWB in February, that was like the icing on the cake. So for Jane, my wife, to be comfortable with and interviewing and all that, I did the due diligence. I talked to the people. I talked to Mike Stetson, and when I started talking to other people, not only was JWB team, they were warm to you, they were friendly to you, and it's kind of their job, but, why would you not invest with a company that makes you feel like family? And that certainly was how we were treated and how we felt, especially after, that was icing on the cake when we got down there to see the group, see the operation. That was just mind-boggling. They have everything set up so that everybody sees what everybody else is doing, and when you're walking around, everybody, they're trying to not make eye contact with you, but I'm not like that with people. I make them make eye contact with you. I smile at them, I wave at them, and they're waving at me like, who the hell is this guy? You know, and I'm going, you sent me an email. You know, well, I feel like I know you now, right?
That you should have gone up and just given him a big bear hug, surprised him. I mean, that's normally what I do. I'm a big hugger, and you know what? My whole team knows it. So I don't know what I'm going to do during COVID.
I surprised Ashley with that. When I gave her a big hug, and her boss is standing next to me. I think it was Kimberly. She's standing next to me, going, "Well, I'm in the way."
Hey guys, if I can just jump in real quick, it is 1 o'clock, so we're at that half an hour mark. I appreciate everybody still sticking around with us. Lee, if it's okay, we'll go a little bit longer since we had the technical issues. Are you available a little while longer?
Yeah. I'm sorry about that. I had to come down here where my Wi-Fi was. I'm good.
That's okay, man. I appreciate it. Just for the people that came for only half an hour, right? I just want to give our usual housekeeping when the show is about to end. If you want to talk about this stuff, how to add this to your portfolio, how to add the passive income, go to chatwithjwb.com. On Thursday, we do our Q&A show. That's all Q&A. It's seeming like we're probably going to have to carry some over. Maybe we'll bring Lee back on since you're usually with us. But to register for that, go to jwbqa.com. If you want to join our Facebook group, we want you in there, jwbfacebookgroup.com. And if you want to register for next week's episode of the Not Your Average Investor Show, where Greg and Alex are going to be giving a market update of everything that's going on, go to jwbshow.com. And I also have to mention that I don't have to mention, right? I think I would be doing a disservice if I don't mention that the May mortgage guarantee is still in effect, right? So if you want to try to lock a property up, if your main concern is the short-term effect of what it's going to be on your tenant, JWB is going out of their way to guarantee the mortgage payment for you for the first 6 months of any new property that's closed up until the end of the month of May. And it takes a couple of weeks to get that done. So if you're interested in that, I encourage you to go to chatwithjwb.com, set up a time, talk to the mics, and everybody's going to be very, very helpful. Like you just heard with Lee's experience, that'll be the experience that you have as well. So speaking of experiencing Lee, I want to continue. I want to continue having that. Lee, you mentioned something. I want to just ask a follow-up question here from John Avila, and then I got some other things for you. But he asked, and I'm not sure if you've already answered this the way that we've gone down it, but he asked, is Lee already getting cash flow from his properties in his retirement account, or is it remaining in his account, if he doesn't mind me asking? It sounds like you are taking that cash flow and paying down principal. Is that what's going on?
Yes. Absolutely, yeah. I am still paying down the properties. I mean, we just joined up, got the properties in December, so I don't have much equity now, but I'm not at a retirement age yet. So I
think we're losing them a little bit.
But, you know, I mean, the plan is that we're going to eventually get to a point.
I could probably jump in and answer that a little bit. So,
am I still on? I'm hoping I'm on. Anyway,
fading a little bit.
We're trying to get to a point where we're paying them down.
I got to jump in and help him here. So, all right. So, the answer to the question is, in your retirement accounts, the income needs to stay in your retirement account. So that doesn't mean that Lee is taking the positive cash flow that his assets are earning and then putting that into his personal bank account. Can't do that. You have to keep it in the retirement account until you can make withdrawals after the age of 59 and a half. And so, but what Lee was describing is this really great strategy of paying down your loans through the waterfall effect or the cascading effect, however you want to call it. But basically what you're able to do is to strategically pay down the mortgages. So I think Lee mentioned that he's getting roughly about $200 a month of positive cash flow once he takes into consideration the financing on his properties in his retirement account. And instead of spreading that around to all of the 4 mortgages, he strategically chooses one and he pays that down. So now that one, instead of that being a 20-year loan, that one now, I think he mentioned it becoming a 3-year loan, right? Or a 5-year loan, okay? And so that's that strategic pay down to do. And so the answer is Lee is not receiving that cash flow that he can go out and buy, you know, go to the movies with it or whatever. But what he's doing is he's using that positive cash flow. It stays in his retirement account, and then it goes to pay down the loan that's specifically tied to his retirement account purchases.
Okay.
How did I do, Lee? You good?
That was perfect. Once I get to a point where I'm, 62 and I need it, then I can start taking it and just let the 20-year go. I mean, I still see, between Jane's retirement account and my retirement account, we're still seeing that we could, live on what we have invested already, so that's going to be the icing on the cake. But yeah, you're right. We do want to pay it down. It is still staying in my retirement account. It's not something that I'm touching. And then I would have to make a normal draw on it. If I got to that point, I would have to make a normal draw like I would in any retirement, and it's taxed and all that after that. But
that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Lee, you mentioned something earlier about building this portfolio to then have your son manage it later on. And it got me thinking, I never thought about the idea of building up a passive income real estate portfolio and the longevity of that, right? Like I think of retirement accounts, the traditional retirement accounts, people take it at 65 and live off it until it winds down, and then they leave a little bit on the back end. But it seems to me that for a real estate rental income portfolio, that would be something that you can pass on to your son that will be there forever, and it'll continue just being this cash flow machine. Am I thinking about that correctly? Were you thinking about that when you decided that? Is that in your strategy now? And am I even right about thinking it?
No, that's exactly correct. I think that so part of the asset protection planning, whatever you called it, it was one of the courses. The passive income club was, what they talked about using JWB, and then what they were talking about was you can, get this like a irrevocable trust, and I put everything into the irrevocable trust. So my portfolio goes into that, and that's what I can turn over in a percentage to whoever I want. So in this case, 50% is going to go to my son, 50% is going to go to my nephew, Jeff. And, it's a long-term thing that we're looking at. We're looking at a commitment. I mean, yeah, you get a 20-year mortgage. And as Greg said, you keep the house for about 10 years, 15 years, and then you turn that over, and then you can get that from the one house by two more houses, right? So you can exponentially get your portfolio to be huge, right? So it's going to be bigger than one person can live on. So, I mean, you're talking about a generational pass down that you're going to be benefiting family that, everybody talks about that, right? How do you want to be able to leave your legacy, right? Your legacy, what's that going to look like? My legacy, I'm hoping, is going to be real estate, and everybody's going to say, but he was an IT.
Greg, you want to chime in there? I think we lost a little bit of volume there at the end, but am I thinking about that correctly in the sense that the rental income portfolio piece of this actually goes a further way than whatever my dad's IRA would be able to benefit me later on if you're thinking about it in that way?
Yeah, it's like a tree that keeps bearing fruit, right? You have the asset that, at some point will be paid off. And many of our clients, myself included, I'm excited about being able to pass on assets to my kids, not only just passing it on. I'm really excited about using these assets as a way to teach my kids, because I have young kids, how to make an investment, right? How to decide when to fix something, right? How to decide how to manage income and expenses. So I love tangible real estate because I think that's such a cool business in itself to teach. And then clients go one step farther and they start thinking about their own legacy. And, it's not just potentially, giving a pile of money to that next generation. It's giving that asset to that next generation and really showing them how you can invest in assets. Because I think most people have it wrong when it comes to how they're going to build towards retirement. They have this idea that they're just thinking of trying to earn and save and invest so they can create a pile of money, right? We think about creating assets, right? And especially using smart leverage, especially when you're younger, if you can acquire assets when you're younger, what you're doing is you're creating those trees that are going to continue to bear fruit in future generations. What most people do is they try to get a pile of money. They have this number in their head. They get to retirement, and then they try to invest that pile of money, but they need to be conservative, so they can't get a high yield on those assets. And so now it's really, really hard for them to retire with the right amount of income coming in, right? Lee's approach is very different. Our approach is very different. It is use smart leverage at the right time, especially if you're young, build up those assets while you're young. And then over time, you're going to have a rental property portfolio full of income producing assets, not just a pile of money. And your returns on those income producing assets are going to be a lot higher than bonds or other conservative things that you need to invest in when you get to retirement.
It's just going to keep growing. You know, I mean, this asset class is just going to keep growing and multiplying. So it's generation.
I'm glad you mentioned all that, Lee, because that hadn't, 2 months in as host of the Not Your Average Investor Show, that stuff hadn't really dawned on me, that difference between what you just said, Greg, saving up a pile of cash versus creating an empire of real estate, and how much of a no-brainer it is, right? So like, if you're already decided on that asset class, Lee, I imagine this passive investment club had a couple of different options of people to go with for passive investing. How did you narrow down where you wanted to end up? You said something about the treatment of JWB, but were you also looking at like the market dynamics, stuff like that, or was it purely a feel?
Well, I mean, I was talking to a passive income club, has a guy named Mike, and Mike was talking about the different groups that, supply assets. And one of the, when I was talking to Gregg's team, I noticed they were, I saw their little video that they provided, and they said that they're just in Jacksonville. And I thought, what's in Jacksonville? And I, did the due diligence looking around in Jacksonville to see what was there, right? Cool stuff, a lot of places, a lot of employment, got the military. You're going to be generating, so it's a self-fulfilling rental property that's going to be, used as an asset. When I was looking at the other places, the other Memphis Invest, I think it's called something else now. They had some places in like 5 different states. And so, Mike from Passive Income was like, why do you want to put all your eggs in one basket? And I'm thinking, well, why do you want to have 5 different states where I got to register with all these taxes and everything? It's kind of like a pain in the butt to me. So I was like, okay, these guys have it down. You're looking around, you're saying, okay, does anybody have any negative things to say about JWB? And I couldn't find any. And honestly, I was looking pretty good. And, I'm not saying that I found some from Memphis Invest, which I did, but I'm not saying that, I'm just saying I did my due diligence and we came up with the right team, I think.
That's awesome, man. Thanks for that story. I know that's really funny. Okay, interesting. So then you decided instead of the intuitive thing of diversify, you saw an advantage, which is less headache, more passive if I don't have to register for income in different places, and you valued that over the idea of being in multiple markets.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons, obviously. But when I saw the video from the other place, and I talked to the people from the other place, and I just didn't get the same vibe that I got when I was talking to Mike Stetson and I was talking to the JWB group. And really, that I go by feel. I go by how quick I can get a relationship, and they got the right people involved. Man, am I losing it again?
We got you, brother.
All right. I thought I was being still again. But I mean, honestly, it really was a no-brainer. I mean, for my wife to come on board and say, yeah, we like JWB, that really does say something. That was tough, for her to win her over, for her to feel warm and comfortable in investing $500,000. It speaks volumes for JWB. I'm telling you, it does.
We don't take that lightly. Please tell Jane that we we just care deeply about serving you both. And I could tell that she was the tougher one to impress. The first time that I met her, I said, we're going to have to put our A game together here for Jane. But no, I mean, it's this trust that we have that, that we've, earned to a degree with you guys, but we try to earn it every single day. I mean, at the end of the day, for folks like yourself to be able to have the ability to invest in a market that they're thousands of miles away with, to trust us with $500,000 in your retirement account is a really big responsibility. It is not something that is earned overnight. It's something that the full picture has to feel right for somebody to be able to do that. And you can't have a change.
Uh-oh.
I think we lost Gregg. Well, luckily we got a queue of questions here to ask you. So we have a bunch of questions. I don't think we're going to be able to get to all of them, everybody, but so we keep track of this stuff. I will ask anything that isn't Lee specific. I'm going to ask it on Thursday, and we're going to hit that on Thursday, right? So if you want to register for the Thursday show, go to jwbqna.com, and you only have to register once, and it'll keep renewing for you. So Lee, there's a couple here specifically for you. And one is, John Avila asks, does Lee have to manually pay his mortgage payments with the retirement account, or does the IRA custodian handle that?
Okay. So actually I have I set it up so that it's automatically directly going in to pay. It's being paid directly to the bank from the retirement account automatically. I have it set up. So if I want to pay down extra, then I have to manually go in and do that, right? So I can determine how much I want to put down extra on house number 2 to pay it down. Like during this time of crisis, I was like, do I really want to pull the trigger and just automatically set that up to do it? And the answer was no, it's not fiscally sound to do that. And I'll tell you, right now, I said I pulled the numbers for the month of May, and I'll get to that. I had to pay $39.90 and 80 cents for the month of May for the four properties, and I pulled in 43 something, right? So I'm up, but I'm not up enough to put an additional mortgage payment down on the second asset yet, but that's coming. I feel comfortable with it. I'm happy with the way JWB is handling the people that are, need to have the extra assistance, need to have the extra time. I mean, we're on board with that. Jane and I are comfortable with that. And that was part of the reason why we had the reserves, to be able to handle, not being paid all of the mortgages, and it's working, right? Everybody's paying what they can, and everybody's working what they can. We're working with the people, and we're working with JWB, and as long as I still see, I think it ended up being $439 positive cash flow that went into my account for this month. So, that's still a plus. I didn't lose money in my investment this month, which is a credit to JWB. They're doing a great job this year. Through this pandemic, that's crazy. I'm happy.
That's great. Can we dive into that a little bit? So does that mean, so that's 439 positive cash flow that you got in? It sounds like you have 5 properties?
5 properties.
And it's, so does that mean that one of your tenants or more than one of your tenants wasn't able to pay full rent?
So what happened was I had a tenant that paid twice. They paid $200 in one payment and $500 in another. So it covered the mortgage more or less, but it wasn't the full payment. And Ashley's been on the phone with me just about every week to let me know what's going on with my accounts and whether or not my portfolio is being paid or not. And she reaches out to the tenants to say if there's any problems or anything like that. And we had an issue where one of the houses was rented, and then there was an incident and it wasn't rented anymore. And so JWB took care of everything. We didn't have to lay out any cash or anything like that, no additional expenses to have this taken care of. And it didn't have anything to do with coronavirus. It didn't have anything to do with somebody not being able to pay the rent. It was, somebody got in there. It wasn't, being truthful when they came in. and they got out. And so it took a little while for them to get that another tenant into the property, which happens. That's what being if you're a happy landlord, and I am, that's volumes, right? If I was doing it myself, I'd be saying I want to shoot somebody, and that's not good. But that's why JWB handles that for me.
There you go, brother.
And it sounds like that strategy that Gregg talks about, where you really do want to own, at least 3 properties to diversify, is working well for you. Are all of your properties, are all 5 of them on 2-year leases? Is a question from Maryland.
No, actually, I had one that came in with a 1-year lease, but the rest of them are. No, wait a minute. I have 3 of them that are 2-year leases and 2 of them that are 1-year leases right now.
Yeah, and we should talk about that. So we accept Section 8 leases on a small percentage of our inventory. So the reason that we do that, and the reason that we don't accept Section 8 for the vast majority of our inventory, is because it's all based on what the best return is going to be for the owner, right? So the way the Section 8 vouchers work, typically you're going to get a really high rental rate. If it's a 5-bedroom home or a bigger home, the vouchers typically pay more for Section 8. And the other thing to consider is it worth it to go through the additional hoops to jump through? So we make a decision based on what the voucher amount is, and then we also make a decision on how much red tape is going on within the Section 8 program as to whether or not we're going to accept the Section 8 resident. Now, Section 8 has a rule. You cannot sign longer than a 1-year lease. So I don't have the exact number in front of me, but out of the 3,500 homes that we manage, I think like 7 or 8% is Section 8 rentals. And so generally speaking, that would be the reason why we accept a 1-year lease. There's extenuating circumstances where we might accept a 1-year lease, but that would be the reason. I didn't know you had 2 1-year leases. That's pretty unique. So for those 2 1-year leases, were they Section 8 or were they extenuating circumstances?
No, I think it was just extenuating circumstances. Somebody had to get in. I mean, when Ashley calls me and talks to me and says, what's going on, as long as it's being rented, I don't care. To me, that just means, okay, if they're going to sign up again, it's $75 more a month that I'm going to get in the rent. So I'm not complaining. Trust me, I'm not complaining about it. And I know you guys are working hard to get everything straightened out. It's great. I'm happy with that.
Yeah, just to be clear, I don't think anybody here has heard you complain. Like, I don't think anybody here thinks you're complaining, man. You're way too jolly to be complaining over here. So we got about another 5 minutes, I think, before we got to hop off. There's a couple more here. Questions directed at you. Marilyn has a couple. Marilyn Cotterman, who one of our favorite regulars, as always.
We love Marilyn.
Did you have to get a 20-year loan rather than a 30-year loan?
The non-recourse loan, that's one of the things, is it's a 20-year loan, higher interest rate, shorter term, and then usually a non-recourse loan is 50%, and that's, I managed to get somebody that was able to give me a 40%, but 20 years is a non-recourse loan, yes.
And when he's talking about 50% or 40%, he's talking about the down payment, just to clarify.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Got it. Great. All right. Thank you for clarifying, right? Never assume that I know what's going on here. It's obvious. John Avila asks, are the property maintenance costs paid by the IRA custodians?
Is that the question to me? Yeah.
Yeah.
So maintenance and insurance and what I'm paying JWB to manage it is all paid by me, right? So they collect the rent and then they turn around and, give me, I see what's taken out after that, and that gets deposited.
And we should clarify that. Let's separate Lee the person from Lee the solo 401k. So right. What's important is anything that's in the solo 401k is paid from the solo 401k account, right? So when Lee's saying it's paid for me, it's really paid from Lee's solo 401k account, right?
Not out of my pocket, right? Not out of my pocket. I'm not opening my wallet up for this stuff.
There you go. Good. Otherwise, I'd have to help you make sure you weren't commingling funds. So we're good.
All right. I'm glad we saved that one. And I think we're going to do one last question here, which I think is a kind of involved question. Mike Foster asks, with Lee using non-recourse loans, even at only 40% down for his IRA purchases, does he get hammered with annual UBIT and wind up with much lesser net profits? And same questions goes for when he ultimately sells each property and pays UBIT on those profits. So first question for me is, what is UBIT? And then I guess we can go from there.
Yeah, I'll jump in there with UBIT. So it stands for Unrelated Business Interest Tax, I believe. So when you get financing in a retirement account, sometimes that is subject to this call it additional tax. It's called UBIT. So nobody likes UBIT, right? So it's something to take into consideration if you're investing in retirement accounts with non-recourse financing. But I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that Lee does not have to worry about UBIT because we strategically set up a solo 401k. A solo 401k allows you to avoid UBIT when you take out non-recourse financing. It's a beautiful thing. So Lee, would you like to add anything on there?
No, but I mean, that was all part of what we were taught in the training is how to protect yourself, and that was certainly covered in the course. And I'm glad you said it because I was going, UBIT, I've heard of that. What the hell was that? But I knew I didn't have to worry about it, right? I knew I didn't have to worry about it with the setting up the solo 401k for it, so that was cool.
Something to take into account. So normally a self-directed IRA or a Roth IRA, if you are investing and you take out financing on it, ask some questions to see if you'll be subject to UBIT. Solo 401k, you're not subject to UBIT if you take out financing. So cool little nugget for everybody who is thinking about investing with their retirement accounts. Great question, Mike.
Yeah, that was a great question.
Cool little nugget. I learned something new today, as usual. It always happens in like the last question, right? I finally the light comes on for me. Lee, real quick, just yes or no. Marilyn just wanted to know, have you done any private lending with JWB?
No, I have not. Like I said, I just got into real estate investing, and I just found out about them, and I'm happy on the purchasing and the passive income. I'm good with where I am with that. I don't need to be lending money.
Ultimately, the way the numbers shake out, you actually do earn a larger return on investment over time based on the assets going up in value if you have a long-term asset. So I'm sure, that factors into it as well for Lee. If you can invest, you feel comfortable, and you have a higher upside. A lot of folks will go to the rental property investing. Private lending is a great thing. It's very easy. We pay 10% interest, but it's got a limited upside because you don't actually get the appreciation of the asset. So there you go.
Yeah.
Excellent. So we're going to wrap up here. I really, really want to thank everybody that stuck around. We still have 23 people sticking around here. I see a lot of names that are regulars that I just want to acknowledge. And if I miss you, I'm sorry, right? But Rich Glover, glad to have you back. Jane Bishop, Eric Shapiro, Ashley, you're always with us. Thank you.
I see some current clients. Let me recognize a couple of those folks. We got
Please.
Aaron O'Neill, big Patriots fan up there in Boston. Everett Shapiro. Let's see here. We've got Mike Foster, current client, and a couple of really great folks. Keith Pace. So appreciate all of you guys for being here.
Definitely. John Avila, Marilyn Cotterman, thanks for chipping in. Robert, I see your question. We're going to answer that in the Q&A. I don't think that we're going to have time to do it today, unfortunately. We're going to answer that on Thursday. We'll get that handled. And I just want to encourage everybody to join us on Thursday's Q&A call. That's the completely open forum where you can ask Greg or me, or Lee will probably be around, and we'll be able to bring him on if you want to ask him any more questions. Join us. That is jwbqa.com. If you haven't already scheduled that, join us in the Facebook group so we can hang out throughout the week. jwbfacebookgroup.com. If you want to have a personalized evaluation of where your portfolio is and how you can get involved in rental income properties or the private lending program, go to chatwithjwb.com, pick out a time slot, and the guys can help you out there. And, finally, I want to personally, Lee, it's great, man. Like I met you when you did your visit. We were filming the Not Your Average Investor show. you came in and did a testimonial for us, and I immediately felt like we were friends. And then you gave me a big bear hug, man. So thanks a lot for being a part of this. It really, really helps the fact that you're the first person that asks a question. It kind of gets us into our groove, right? Like the people that ask questions in this group really helps us out. It helps us going. And without further ado, I'll leave it to Gregg to. Oh, last thing, I'm gonna leave this on. I'm gonna turn off video, turn off sound. But if any more questions trickle in that we want to add in for the show next week, that'll still be on. And next Tuesday we have Gregg and Alex giving us the market update. You're definitely gonna want to tune in on that, and you can register for that at JWBshow.com. I'm gonna put that right now in the notes. And Gregg, I will let you finish off for us here.
Yeah, Lee, just wanted to say thank you, buddy. It's been really wonderful to be a part of getting to know you and Jane and your whole family. It's been great to be able to serve a client that we just kind of click right off the bat, and everything we're doing in your portfolio is really exciting, for us to be able to have that trust from you. But I just wanted to say thank you for helping Pablo and I kind of get this thing off the ground. I don't know if you know how much it means to, when you're starting a new venture, which we started, call it 6 months ago, or 9 months ago when we started this show and kind of putting it together. We didn't know if we were going to be able to connect and kind of create a community. And so with you being there from day one and taking time out of your busy day and posting comments and giving me a hard time on the real estate walk and talks and just being there, it really, really gave us a lot of confidence as we've been starting. And, it's almost like a new business venture is the way that we think about this. So it kind of takes me back to the days of starting JWB and the first time that, somebody bought a property from us, I'll never forget. Right. And, I kind of think about it the same way. Like the first time we actually kind of built a sense of community, I think about you. And I just wanted to say thank you for doing that. You didn't have to do it. And I think you did it not just because you saw some value in it, but because you wanted to be a really great friend. And I appreciate it, buddy. It's been awesome. So thank you.
It's been great. I'm sorry I'm an IT guy and I had bad IT experience with this, but I love being on the show. I love being able to interact with you guys. You guys are great. And I feel like we're friends. And that's what it's all about, I just want to say thanks for the opportunity to get on live. I loved it.
All right, brother. We'll see you on Thursday for sure.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.
All right. Thank you, everybody. See you in the group.